topic is a very timely topic, having to do with AI personalization for banking. You kind of wonder what that, whether we are involved in financial services, whether we are a banker, whether we work with banks, whether we are a consumer. One thing is clear: the world is changing with regards to customer engagement with financial institutions using technology in a very different way. So this conversation, this discussion is just going to kind of talk about a few things associated with this and how we need to be prepared is for informational purposes, educational purposes only. So we're excited about this discussion. The other aspect is that we want you to make generous use of the chat capability. If you have questions that you want me to ask the panel, I'll be able to do that. Or you may use chat to leave your own LinkedIn information as a ways to make connections with different ones from this group. So we thank you for this. One of the things that we're going to ask that makes it easier, that if you're not going to be speaking, we just ask you to turn your camera off for this part until we go into the breakout rooms. It just makes it a little bit easier so that we can focus on the panel. If we were able to make those changes, that'd be great. Makes it clear. Perfect. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn it over to the Agile Thought team so they can have an opportunity to introduce themselves, their background, a little bit about Agile Thought, and then we can go right into our discussion.
Shall we?
Yeah, we're ready to go.
Hey, I'll jump in. Hey, I'm Chris Brummel, and I'm the guild manager for Agile Thought for the Design and Product Guild. And so what that means is we're an IT services company in Agile Thought, and we've been around for about 20 years and helping companies in a lot of different industries. In particular, banking is one of our major ones, but independent of that, we also have retail and we have healthcare and a number of other ones, but we're here today to talk to you about banking, and so we have a number of experts in that field in particular. But our guilds are organized around our expertise. So I mentioned our industry expertise. We pair that with technology expertise on the guild side. And to that point, let me hand off to Alonso so he can speak about his expertise in his guild.
Hey, Chris. I'm Alonso Castañeda. I lead the Data and AI Guild, where we concentrate, as Chris was saying, we concentrate the talent, the capabilities, and our offerings related to data and AI. We cover everything from data engineering, data analytics, data governance, machine learning, data science, and AI. So all of those consultants are in my group, and very happy to be here with you to talk about this exciting topic and how it's transforming the banking industry.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Alonso. As we kind of get started, one of the things that we are seeing is that there's a bombardment of information about AI that's in the media, in the marketplace. We know that it's going to impact our lives, whether we are a banker, whether we sell into banks, whether we work with banks, whether even from a consumer perspective. But how can you explain how data and AI are really revolutionizing the banking experience for just individual users? It's having a tremendous impact. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, well, data and AI is transforming the banking sector in several ways, but one in particular is personalization. It's shifting from a generalized approach to a personalized journey. This is done via the use of a lot of data that banks have, and AI tools and analytics that can help us extract that information so we can understand and evolve with our customer needs, and then at the end offer tailored services. This evolution in banking experience leads to more meaningful interactions, building trust, and also strengthening the relationships with the customers.
Thank you. From Chris, from your perspective, there's a lot that has to go in, obviously, with kind of building out that AI infrastructure. So how's the design of the chatbot interactions evolving in banking to really enhance the customer experience? Some people kind of get intimidated, overwhelmed by a chatbot kind of communicating with them, but what's happening around that's concerned, that whole design aspect of that?
No kidding. One thing I think that we need to be thinking about is an evolving relationship with chatbots. If you think about today's chatbots, they don't really have a cache or a memory. Like once you stop interacting with it, you start again. That interaction's flushed and you start fresh with your next interaction. But if the chatbot can evolve with a persistent relationship with the user, they can continue to become more relevant and helpful and trustworthy as time goes on. There was a study a couple of years ago that found that like older users and younger users diverged in how they saw chatbots, where older people tend to find them more pragmatic and helpful, and younger people found them more hedonically, like was it funny, was it weird or rude? And so we've seen banks lean into this generational divide through digital only banks. You probably have seen a lot of banks start digital only banks, and they angle them for younger viewers because there is a difference between how older users and younger users do it. And this data could be considered in how a traditional bank handles a chatbot versus how a digital bank handles a chatbot. It's not as if you're going to go, have a wild chatbot at a digital bank, but it's still a bank and needs to meet the needs of the users. Being that this study was done right before the boom of GPTs, I think things can be taken a lot farther in that direction with a digital bank. It can be just as helpful, but maybe a little bit more personable with a way that aligns with the brand that they're putting forward for younger viewers.
That's quite interesting. Again, we just put notes in the chat. Anybody, as you have questions as the audience, if you have, please put them in the chat so we can ask the panel to make this a very engaging discussion. We want to make sure that your questions are being answered as well. Thank you, Chris, for that response. Alonso, we obviously know that our discussion is talking about the personalization that's in banking. So what impact does personalization in banking have on a customer? The satisfaction of a customer, in order to engage with that bank more, or to as far as their engagement. And as you talk about this whole personalization, if you can give some examples of what that looks like, I think that's going to help the audience kind of further understand a little bit more about what they need to be aware of, what's happening with regards to AI, banking, and personalization.
Sure. So, personalization I would say in any industry, and also applies to banks, is very important to increase the satisfaction and engagement. Everyone likes to be heard, or to be feel like they are being heard, and the company is taking care of their needs, and this shows in studies and data that we have. Like, for example, 75% of customers prefer banks that offer some way of personalized services. And even though banks know this and they are very customer focused, 70% of the banks prioritize customer focus, only 14% of clients feel that their services are adequately personalized. So that's because there's challenges on doing that successfully. And personalized digital experiences increase customer satisfaction from 39 to 49%. So there's a significant impact on how the customers perceive the services from the bank, and how they engage and get customer satisfaction. In terms of examples of some personalizations, I will use a couple of banks that think they are doing a good job on this, which is Deutsche Bank offers bespoke services and a personalized mobile experience, and this fosters loyalty and trust. So they offer a digital user experience that is specific for their journey, and they offer a specific, for example, an next best action, or maybe they have fraud, a possible fraud detected on the account, so quickly they show that action in the application, so they can quickly get to the right place where they have to go, without having them to dig into the whole navigation of the mobile application. So that's one example. Also, Capital One uses targeted marketing to make relevant offers that resonates deeply with the customer's unique financial journeys. So this is first you have to understand the customer well, so to know where they are in their maybe life stage, or what goals they have. And once you have that deep knowledge of the customer, you can send them appropriate offers and services that will be more relevant to them, and that will be more likely to buy those services and products. So that's another, those are some examples.
Alonso, there was somebody who responded in the chat with regards to that example. Can you mention again that use case that you just explained, the name of the bank?
Capital One, and then also Deutsche Bank.
Okay, perfect. We have someone who just created a question. How do you see AI prioritization, data privacy, and security to gain customers' trust when using the solutions like IVA to navigate the customer journey in the banking vertical? Best use cases to reference in 2024 for real-time examples. That's a question that came from the audience.
Yeah, well, security is a big concern for everyone, that being in banks or healthcare, and it's also a concern from the customer perspective. So this is, I will give you an example from the healthcare industry, but I think it also applies to banking. A lot of customers, a lot of patients in America wouldn't feel comfortable with their diagnosis being done 100% by an AI. I think it's like around 70% of patients. So there's a big distrust on giving full power for the AI to take decisions. In the banking industry, I think it's the same, with an AI offering maybe some financial products or some investment options or different opportunities. There has to be a human in the loop that can help them, help the customers understand those options, and also making sure that those recommendations are accurate. So there's a big piece there with the advancements in large language models, where we need to always check those outputs to make sure that they are accurate and that it will give the expected results. And there's a lot of other aspects on security, like making sure that the AI is giving the information that they are entitled to see. That's another concern, that we have some options to do that, that the data is kept private, that doesn't go to the vendor of the large language model. And so there are options to do that as well. So there's a lot of concerns. I think that the options to resolve them are evolving, and they are available to us more clearly.
Good. Hope that question, James, was answered. Thank you, Alonso. Chris, how do banking applications offer the next best action to users, minimizing their time spent navigating? Because that's, at the end of the day, that's what they want to do. They want to spend less time, with regards to on a banking site. So they're using AI, kind of helping them with this. Some would find this to be very positive feedback. What are your thoughts on that?
I think there's a balance. Like, implicit in the question is this idea of a dynamic interface that's adapting to a user's actions. That can be a problem with something as purpose-oriented as banking. You can't get in the way of people and their money, And so there needs to be clear and consistent paths to the critical actions, and it needs to be predictable. But that said, I do see as a trend people creating and designating like a dynamic area of the app to give those suggestions and next best actions. For that to be effective, you need to have a good like predictive analytics and really dig into those personas and user paths. And so AI and machine learning can really help with that. And so I highly, also independent of AI, I recommend you invest in your service design, because good design is about reducing friction. And that friction can come well before anybody even opens an app and begins interacting in a digital fashion. And so service design can identify the pain points through a user's journey with the entire banking experience, and not just limited to the app. Now, having an AI work behind the scenes could be one method to be helpful. And, while not having to disrupt a user interface, like if if an AI can employ predictive analysis, and let's say you give it control of 5% of your account, it could do something like, say, based on market trends or economic indicators, we've moved 1% of your money into a high yield account, and do you approve it? So there's ways that AI could work behind the scenes to kind of make good informed decisions on your behalf that could reduce that friction and how did you put it? Like next best actions. Like it could do predictive analysis for the next best action in that fashion.
Excellent. You talked a little bit about, the whole navigation aspect. So what about the UI, the UX design play in making banking applications more user-friendly and intuitive? What are your thoughts around that, and kind of tie that back into the whole aspect of AI?
Well, let's see. I think, the UX designer and the UI designer, they are the lead. Like that's in their core job in making them more user-friendly and intuitive. Like to understand the needs and how to help deliver on those as effectively as possible. UX designer, they're going to do their baselining research. So let's take a feature like transferring money between accounts or something. A UX designer will look at all the apps and all the competitors and kind of establish industry best practices, and they'll poke and prod at that to see if there's anything that can be improved upon. And then, they'll make some wireframes, maybe a quick prototype, and they'll test it to make sure to see how their idea works. If things go as expected, they'll hand it off to a UI designer who will take that and kind of bring it to life. They'll add the brand and give it a sense of identity, add some interaction design, maybe some motion. So it's clear how a UX designer helps to make it more intuitive. They do the research that is in service of reducing the friction. On the UI side, it's the interaction design that kind of works most towards that goal, using micro interactions to show things like how money is transferred from one account to another and to maintain a sense of completion or a sense of place. To your question on AI, like, in the previous comment we were talking about how you can't kind of get in the way of these concrete actions. And so I don't know if AI would make sense to be playing a role in that space, but definitely in these like for you style sections or insight style sections. I don't know if you've heard of atomic design, but it's this idea of taking design components and kind of breaking them down from, you have, let's say, a page, and the page has a nav bar. And so that's a subcomponent. And below that would be the search field in the nav bar. And then within that is a button. So you're kind of breaking these down into just smaller and smaller items until you have a design system that can be interoperable and kind of dynamic. And so using an atomic design system in conjunction with AI modeling that's going to give you dynamic content kind of allows you to compartmentalize your design in a way that can interact with a dynamic system that an AI might suggest. So, like I said in the previous comment, it's a balance. You don't want to get in the way of people's money, but there are ways you can build your design so that it can be AI friendly and it has its own place.
Interesting. No, I think that's some really good feedback. We have a question from someone who just typed in on the chat, and that question is, who do you find in traditional banks, for example, potential client buyer receptive to AI LLM solutions? So like looking at the bank, where does this kind of sold into at a bank, perhaps?
They're already, like, I know Alonso's going to have a better answer than myself, but they're already doing it specifically on the fraud detection. Like AI and ML is huge in that industry, but I'm going to hand off to Alonso. He can go way deeper than I can in that space.
Nope, a good question, and that's a very good starting the answer for that, right? Is that we're going to look, and any of the audience want to chime in, just ask you questions, and we'll get some time to get some dialogue. That's a very relevant topic, right? Even of itself. Alonso, you have a thought on that?
Yes. So traditional ML and AI, I think it's used across different places in the bank industry. We on fraud detection, as Chris was mentioning, on risk assessment, like credit risk assessment. So there's multiple places where AI is being used. For large language models and generative AI, I think new use cases are being enabled by this technology, like more intelligent chatbots or agents, AI agents that can automate things and make suggestions and have more intelligent conversations with the clients, and also internally for communication, for better communication, for summarization, for example, of complex financial statements or market analytics, like, for example, explaining some market trends or some results to investors. So there are several use cases that are being explored and implemented right now that we're seeing.
No, I appreciate that feedback. I just want to take a pause. So, our discussion so far is talking about AI, personalization, banking. But when we look at the audience, they come from very different backgrounds, and this could be very informative or educational. Whether we sell into banks, whether we partner with banks, whether we align with banks, this type of subject is really helpful because it helps us to understand what's behind the curtain, what's going on deep within relationships that we have within the financial services sector. So one question then I want to ask is, what are the main challenges in implementing personalization in banking? How can this be addressed, right? Because we know that this is happening. You use some examples of where it's occurring, but anything in business always has challenges, and it's a pushback. So are there challenges in implementing this within a bank that you've seen, or any observations that you can share with the audience around some of those challenges, helping us also become more educated with this capability or technology that is not going anywhere, but only growing?
Yes, so it's all about understanding the customer personas and their preferences, but that can become a big challenge because you need to have mature data management and data governance practices, because if you are not managing your data correctly with high quality and with that you can rely on that data, it's going to be hard to offer to know your customers well. Also, you need to effectively leverage big data and AI platforms. So there's modern data platforms that are available where not all customers are, or not all banks are taking advantage of those technologies. So that's another challenge that we see. Also, acting on those insights. So one thing that we see common is that there's an AI or machine learning model that generates these predictions or these recommendations, but they stop there, and there's no propagation of these insights to the whole organization. So having an effective way to distribute those insights across the different channels and the different areas in the organization, that's another important piece and a challenge. And all of those involve having clean and usable data, integrating data from various sources, and as I was saying, applying AI and machine learning at scale across the organization.
So no, thank you for that answer, Alonso. So then what about the whole agile thought approach to know your customer, right? Because we know that that's something that's very specific, especially, whether we use AI or just banking, dealing with our banking partners anyway, there is a know your customer aspect, right? So can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. So knowing your customer is beyond just demographics. It's understanding their behaviors, their preferences, I was saying, their stage in life, their financial habits, and also their needs. What are their needs, and what are they looking to achieve? What are their goals? So to do that, this involves creating nuanced customer segments, using predictive analytics to anticipate their needs, and also ensuring that all touch points deliver a consistent personalized experience. This is related to what I was saying before. Like if you distribute these insights and you have a customer, you have identified something or a need or a problem for a customer that your customer service and your help desk knows about that, so they can take care of the customer problem. The application as well maybe offers a solution to that. The website. So all of those different touch points are prepared with that information and that insight, so they can offer the best service, the best possible service to the clients.
No, it's challenging. That's an opportunity. Chris, you had mentioned before, the question kind of comes up with regards to security, personalization, customer data. All of this has to be kind of balanced out. There are many times, or many consumers or businesses, as we engage, we are concerned about security, right? So where do you see that whole balance out that realistically to be concerned, but needs to be balanced?
Okay. And actually it looks like that speaks to Nancy's question too.
Yes.
Like, like how do you deal with that like level of trust on customer data and that type of thing? The first thing I can think of is switching to passkeys as soon as possible. And if people aren't familiar with that, basically passkeys are passwordless methods of gaining access and authenticating yourself. So if we can move to away from passwords as soon as possible, my parents will have nothing but eternal gratitude. It's the bane of their existence. And so this will help with data breaches, phishing, and all of that type of thing would be a lot trickier. And so a lot of websites are already doing, they already have Face ID, Touch ID. This would be the next step. And so to that question, Nancy, I think that having a method to guarantee through a passkey that you are speaking to the right person and not you can authenticate it through an official app in which nobody's putting in a password, you're not going to some screwy site, that type of thing. Independent of that, I would minimize the amount of sensitive data to display. And so if we're talking about mobile apps, it's being conscious about what's being displayed where, but you can also, do little things like blur the screen when you're app switching, stuff like that. That's kind of a standard practice. And then to your personalization side of things in your question, I was talking about that for you and insights section. I think that there are ways you can kind of superpower that. There's a number of companies that specialize in user tracking across the web. So if somebody's coming to your website or your app after visiting someplace like Zillow, you could start a mortgage conversation. And so that could be a good thing to surface there, like really taking in a user's actions, not just within your app or website, but across the web of what they're doing. And so beyond that, something I'm personally interested in is the trend in sharing comparables. And that's a valuable way to show how you can spend your money. Something like I spend 30% more on food compared to people in my income bracket, something like that. Watching what people engage with on comparables gives you a major indicator of what offers, promotions, financial products people respond to. Like if I got that, hey, 30% spent more on food, or you spend 30% more on food, and I engage with that, there's a whole world you can go into and the type of offers that they're going to be interested in.
Excellent. No, that makes sense. And then the nice question from Nancy's question also was how people are being contacted back and so forth, and how they use that. So good. Thank you for answering that question. Just on the additional thought, Chris, how are digital touch points being optimized in banking to create a seamless customer journey? What you've seen?
So I mentioned service design earlier. And so things that service designers do, they create service blueprints and journey maps. And so, a service blueprint will map out the end-to-end process and the interactions between all those processes. And so this encompasses the front stage actions, things that are customer facing, but maybe more importantly, the backstage actions that support those front stage actions. And so this stuff often doesn't get the attention that it needs, as we're justifiably, understandably focused on the customer journey. And so this isn't limited to an app. Like I think I mentioned it before, this is the entire interaction with the customer, including before and after and in through using the app. And so then on a journey map, this is focused on something similar, but from the customer's perspective and their experience through the same end-to-end journey as a service blueprint. And so it's doing things like emphasizing the touch points and the emotions that people are going through as they're interacting with this, what their pain points are and how they're feeling during hitting all those points. And so together with a service blueprint and a journey map, it kind of paints a complete picture that allows you to identify where you can optimize that experience and make a complete customer journey.
Yeah, no, great response. Thank you. As we kind of narrow down our discussion, I want to open it up to the audience. If they have any questions, make sure to put that in chat. Again, we're talking about a lot of different topics, a lot of different aspects. You may have some questions to kind of speak to the panel while we're here doing this, and that's great. We don't need to wait to the very end. So we have some additional questions that we have for the panel, but we also want to see some of those additional questions that you may have. Just feel free to use the chat in order to raise those questions. So as an additional thought, Alonso, you've talked a lot about kind of knowing your customer and so forth, but there's a role, obviously predictive analytics, obviously in personalizing the banking experience. Kind of where do you see the whole predictive analytics? Is there a play for that for AI? Banks obviously look for that type of information. Kind of what are your thoughts? What's your experience been, in that regard?
Yes. That's a crucial piece in the puzzle of personalization, because the whole purpose is to anticipate the customer needs. So predicting what they will do next, or predicting if they are interested in a specific product, so we can use that information to offer a recommendation, and that at the end is a benefit for the bank, because you can enable some cross-sell or expand sell opportunities. So with these machine learning algorithms, you can predict these different aspects of the user journey, so you can personalize the service. At the end, it's also understanding their financial habits and their goals to accommodate better for their needs.
Yeah, that's a good question. That's a good response. Thank you. We have just one other question. How do you see hallucinations impacting this vertical when using AI solutions?
Yeah, that's a big concern, especially for the large language model, and that's a little bit related to what I was mentioning before. That with the solutions, with Gen AI solutions, there always has to be a check of the output to make sure that nothing out of the standard is being produced. And there's also techniques to avoid those type of things, like doing fine-tuning of the large language models on specific data, using a lot of prompt engineering techniques to limit the scope of and give context to the large language model, so hallucination doesn't happen as often. Still, there's a possibility to do that. So at the end, there should be always a check of the output that it's producing the right results. There are technologies to do that. I'm sure OpenAI is one that we are using that gives good results, because it automatically detects maybe an offensive response, or something that it's not in the standards of what is expected.
Interesting. No, thank you. Thank you for that response, and thanks, James, for that question. Chris, what do you see the future innovations in banking technology? that can enhance the customer experience, obviously using AI. I mean, we have a baseline today that we're seeing. It's evolving, it's growing. Where from today do you look forward to the future and say, okay, the next few years, this is what you think it's going to look like, even more so? And then why is this important to us?
I think we've talked about a number of them on the banking side of tech. Like it's already being used for fraud detection and security. That's obvious why that's relevant to us.
Baseline.
But I think more could be invested around predictive analytics. We talked about chatbots and developing that relationship with you and the automated financial planning and the personalized recommendations, that type of thing. I think all of that is going to be very relevant to people. And you can see that we're already on that path. And if we just lean in, I think that it's going to lead to a far superior banking experience than what we have today. In terms of tech and outside of tech in particular, I didn't mean tech, I meant banking in particular. I'm waiting to see where things land in the whole spatial computing space. We're talking about in, what is it, a couple weeks, Apple has the release of their headset, and I'm really curious how this is going to land. I would call it hype, but I've learned not to bet against Apple in going into a new platform. And so with the Vision OS coming out and they're really making a bet on productivity. And so I'm curious to see, will people bank with a headset on? I have my reasons to be skeptical, but their track record in coming into an immature market and doing something new is good enough to give them a chance. So I want to see what could be done in the banking space with tech like that.
Interesting. And so as a consumer, as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, I mean, this all affects many of us that are on this call. Thank you. Alonso, can you share where you think the future would be, on the business side, the future of banking with AI, with the integration of AI and, just data-driven personalization that we've talked about? Any thoughts that you have?
Yeah, so the expectation and the trend is that we are just starting in the AI journey and the AI adoption. So the expectation is that banks in general and companies in general will accelerate the adoption in AI, which will enable new use cases, like, for example, AI agents to automate not only the customer service or the customer actions, but also the back office operations. So automating several processes with AI agents. And that's one thing that where we see is going to be very beneficial for banks. Tailored communication, more personalized communication, also with large language models that understand the whole user, like a 360 view, like they know if they have had issues in the past, if they've had some fraud or some mischarge or several things, that understand all the perspective of the client, so they can offer very accurate communication and very relevant communication to them and services. So the expectation is that banks will increasingly leverage advanced technology so they can anticipate and meet customer needs, offering more relevant, personalized, and impactful banking experiences.
Excellent. Chris, do you have any final comments to say based on this discussion? Great conversation, great information that you shared. Any thoughts you want to add as a final thought?
No, let's see. I think, we talked about the areas in which I think banks need to invest in. And to that point, independent of whether, we start a business relationship or not, at Agile Thought, we'd love to hear what problems you guys are dealing with and kind of the pain points within not just the banking industry, but your experiences engaging with the industry and that type of thing. So please do reach out. We'd love to continue the conversation. And I think that there's value in kind of investing in the customer through AI, as we've talked about, and it's only going to make the experience for users better.
Okay, Chris, we thank you so much for being here. We know that you have to leave. We wish you the very best, and thank you for being here. The information, so positive. While you're gone, Al will leave your LinkedIn information there. If anybody wants to kind of get contact with you through your LinkedIn or directly through your email, I think that'll be excellent. So I'll let
That's
Al.
fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
We have one question from the audience that we wanted that was raised. Let me see if I can get that. Kristen, well, this is an open question from someone from Agile Thought. Do you see any relationship with AI and quantum computing in the banking sector in the future?
Yes, not just for the banking sector, but in general, the amount of the AIs today use a lot of power, a lot of compute power, and to run those efficiently at a scale, you require a lot of hardware, and quantum computing, it's expected to help on that a lot and make all these computations much faster. So definitely, once we have a mature quantum computer, AI evolution should accelerate a lot.
Interesting. Any final comments from your side, Alonso? Again, thank you so much for this conversation. It's quite relevant.
No, just I would just echo Chris' comment about hearing about your needs and challenges. That would be very helpful. So then, thank you very much for the time.
Excellent. And why don't you put your kind of LinkedIn information, your contact information in the chat? We're going to go into some breakout rooms now. We encourage you to stay, get to meet each other, have an opportunity to have a conversation with the Agile Thought or with each other that's in the breakout room. Jonathan's going to set this up with the breakout rooms. Jonathan, we're ready to go. Make sure you kind of keep the Agile team separate so that they can be in the different rooms. We do ask when you're in the breakout rooms to do a brief introduction about yourself if you can, if you feel comfortable with that. And as you may have some additional questions about this subject, or you may have just an opportunity to kind of talk with each other as well about things that you're working on, where AI may come in, where AI may not come in. But we like to have these sessions or these breakout sessions as a way that we can continue to keep dialogue going and a way that we can introduce ourselves to each other, build relationships, build new opportunities. And that's really what the core is of why we have these engagements. So Jonathan, we're ready. You can set us up.
Yep, I'm setting up this right now. So hold on.
Thank you. Well, I'll be hopping around between the different rooms as well.
All right. So there we go.
Thanks again, Alonso and Chris. Thanks out to the Agile Thought team as well. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, Wayne. Thank you. And thanks everyone for joining.